Hey everyone, welcome back to Noiseberry Games. So it is the end of the year, and to wrap up my top 5 content on this channel, I've got 2 more top 5 videos to do. I do these pretty much every year. I've done them for the last 4 or 5 years, I think, and they're the 2 videos a year where I can really go to town with not talking about video games at all. They are, of course, my top 5 albums of the year and top 5 wrestling matches of the year. So today I'll be going through my top 5 albums of the year, as well as some honourable mentions and dishonourable mentions this year. That'll be fun. And then tomorrow I'll be talking about my top 5 wrestling matches of 2022. So the last couple of years, I kind of started this video off by talking about how music had changed during the pandemic. We're still partially in a pandemic, I guess, but a lot of things are more open now. I got a chance to go to 2 concerts this year, which still isn't a lot, but that's mostly just due to the fact that hardly any bands come to Calgary, Alberta, Canada, unfortunately. I got to go see the Trinity of Terror tour in February with Robbie. We went to see Motionless in White and Ice Nine Kills, and Black Veil Brides were also there, which we stayed for, but I wanted to see the first 2 bands. And then in October or November, I don't quite remember when it was, my girlfriend and I went to go see Trivium, which is great. I've seen Trivium 5 times now, I think, and they're always a great show. But those are the only 2 concerts I've seen here in Calgary. Bad Omens did a really cool live streamed show from New York in mid-December, which was awesome. Loved seeing that. It was Bad Omens with Thousand Below, Make Them Suffer, and Dayseeker, all bands I like a lot. So that was a really cool live streamed show to watch. So I'm just really glad that the streamed concerts haven't totally gone away with real concerts coming back, so that's been nice. Anyway, for this video, I will go through my top 5 albums going from 5 to 1, and just before I get to 1, I will talk about my honourable mentions and also dishonourable mentions. This was a bit of a weird year for music for me. For the last several years, there's been a really, really clear album that I've just fallen in love with that year, and I've known that that's going to be my top album. That didn't really happen to me this year. A lot of bands I really like released albums this year, but just nothing. I didn't fall in love with any one album. So this list is not as strong. I'm not as passionate about this list as I usually am, but I still wanted to do the video, even though there wasn't an album that I really wanted to talk about. So at number 5, I've got Hell Finds You Everywhere by Thousand Below. Just like last year, this is going to be a very metalcore focused list, so apologies if that's not really your thing. So Hell Finds You Everywhere is Thousand Below's 3rd album. I absolutely loved their debut album. That is an album I'm very passionate about, and I could talk about quite a bit. I thought that one was fantastic. Their follow-up album, I didn't really like very much. I can't remember any of the songs off it, honestly. It didn't really stand out, so my expectations were pretty low for this one. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Thousand Below were also on that live stream concert, so I looked up their set list beforehand, just so I could know the songs to watch the show. And they had a couple of songs from this album, because this album actually only came out December 15th, I think it was. So they played a couple of the lead singles. And I actually quite liked the singles. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I will quite like this album. And it came out, and it's pretty short. It's just 10 tracks, I'm pretty sure. 34 minutes or something. But a very, very strong album. Not as good as their debut album, I don't think. But they've kind of shifted styles a little bit. But I thought it was a very strong album. It's the opening track has a feature from the lead singer Bad Omens, which was really cool crossover. And it was really just a solid album that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did like. At number 4, I've got Dark Sun by Dayseeker.
Life of the party when you're crying while you're dancing.
Dayseeker is another band that I really, really love their earlier albums. This is their 5th studio album, and their style of music has changed quite a bit recently. The last 2 albums have been a lot more poppy with a lot of synth elements. This Dark Sun is like barely a metalcore album. In fact, it's probably not a metalcore album at all. But I still enjoyed it quite a lot. Roy Rodriguez is the lead singer, and he just has an incredible voice. So the songs, they all sound great. They're all really catchy. They're all sung extremely well. Their second album, Origin, is one of my absolute favorite albums of all time. So the fact that they've moved away from that style is still very disappointing to me, but I do still really like the music they make. So even though it's not quite what I want, I can still really enjoy it. And there's a couple of heavy moments on this. I think like the first 2 tracks have like a couple of lines of harsh vocals, but otherwise it's entirely clean singing.
I can try, but it blinds when I walk through.
So it's a pretty easy album to get into. It's also a very emotional album. It was written after Rory Rodriguez's father passed away last year, so very feely album. But it's very good still. We're gonna keep with the emotional theme here, and my number 3 album of the year is A Eulogy for Those Still Here by Counterparts. It's very much in the opposite direction of Dayseeker. Dayseeker is a metalcore band that have got very soft, and Counterparts is a hardcore band that's got like a little bit more metalcore, I guess. I've never really took to their music before this album, but the lead singer, Brendan Murphy, had a cat called Kuma, and he absolutely loved this cat, and unfortunately the cat passed away this year. And the second track on this album is called Whispers of Your Death, and Brendan wrote it as his cat was sick and getting close to passing away. And for those who don't know, I lost my own cat 3.5 years ago now, I guess. So it's been quite a while. But the first time I listened to the song Whispers of Your Death, it destroyed me. It was I barely made it through like the first verse, and I was just losing it. I was just crying so bad to it. So the fact that a song from a band that I never really cared for before had that much emotional impact on me, I knew I had to include this album. A really, really powerful album, and I like all the other songs on the album as well, like A Mass Grave for Saints, which is the finale of the album, is also exceptional. But man, it's I think I've actually only listened to this album 3 times because I just couldn't listen to Whispers of Your Death anymore. I love that song, but I don't know if I can listen to it. I bought the album on vinyl like 3 months ago or something, and I still haven't played it because I just don't know if I can listen to that song again. It's an incredible song, my favorite on the album, but it's too good. It's too powerful for me. Coming in at number 2, I have Color Decay by The Devil Wears Prada. The Devil Wears Prada is pretty much a band that I'm always gonna like. They're always gonna put out an album I'm a big fan of. I'm not as big a fan of this as their last album, which I think also took number 2. It was number 2 or number 3 of the year that album came out. But this one kind of follows in that new metalcore style they've been going for. A little bit softer than their previous album. A little bit more experimental as well. There's one song on there called Fire, which is very like synthy, poppy. I didn't mind it on the Dayseeker album, but I don't like that song at all. I skip that song every time it comes on Color Decay. But outside of that, very, very good album. Still some really heavy stuff, and some also sticking with the whole theme of this. Yeah, every album on this list has been very emotional. There's a couple of very emotional songs on here as well, with Time and 25 especially. very, very emotional songs. That's just the theme of this list, I guess. I don't know. I like powerful, meaningful songs, I guess, is what I'm learning from this list. Okay, I want to go over my 4 honorable mentions now. I'll go through them pretty quickly, I think. The first one is an EP called You Miss Everything by Colony Collapse. Hadn't heard of this band before this EP came out, but I think I saw it pop up in like a weekly release thread on the Metalcore subreddit, which is where I always get all of my metalcore music to listen to. And it was really, really good. It's just 5 songs, 4 or 5 songs. I'm pretty sure it's 5 songs, but a really, really excellent EP. Another honorable mention is Nightfall by Set Your Sails. Another new band to me, a female-fronted metalcore band. Really, really cool album. My girlfriend added one of their songs to we've got like a collaborative playlist that the two of us add to that we listen to when we're driving. And Set Your Sails have a cover of Shallow, which is I guess it's from the movie like A Star Is Born or something. Originally by Lady Gaga and like Bradley Cooper or something. But my girlfriend added this cover to our playlist, and I really loved that song, and so I actually gave the full album a go, and it was great. The next honorable mention is Do You Like Violence by Grayscale Season. This is another band that I hadn't heard of before this year, but I have a huge playlist called Metalcore Insert Year Here, where I just add every single album that comes out in the year to that playlist. So at the time of recording, that playlist, the Metalcore 2022 playlist, has 2,332 songs, and it is 141 hours and 38 minutes long. So I just, every single week when new albums come out, I add them to this playlist. And a lot of times if I'm playing a game or something on my Switch, I'll just shuffle this so I can find new albums to listen to. And one time when I was shuffling it, the song Pink Mist by Grayscale Season came on, and that song blew me away. It sounds so good. Would recommend listening to Pink Mist because it's really, really unique. And so I was like, wow, I need to listen to the rest of this album. And it wasn't as good as Pink Mist, but it was still a really, really cool album. And the final honorable mention is Misery Made Me by Silverstein. If this was a top 6 list, this album would be number 6. I really, really like Silverstein. They're actually coming to Calgary with Dayseeker, who I mentioned earlier. They're coming here in April, so Robbie and I are going to go see them, which is very, very cool. Silverstein are Canadian, and I only got into them after they most recently came to Calgary and haven't come back since, which was like 5 years ago or something. So really, really glad they're coming. I'm very excited to get to see them. Okay, now we got enough time for my 3 dishonorable mentions this year. These are, I guess the category or the criteria for this for me is bands I used to like that released absolute stinkers this year. So the first one is Darker Still by Parkway Drive. Parkway Drive did a big genre change from just regular metalcore to, they were like glam metalcore for a couple of albums, and then I don't know what they're doing with this new album. If you want to cringe as hard as you can, listen to the song If a God Can Bleed from this album. Horrendous. I think I listened to 10 of the 11 songs before I was like, no, I'm not gonna bother with this again. The next honorable mention is The Classic Symptoms of a Broken Heart by Architects. Architects was one of my absolute favorite bands. They have just some incredible albums. They have a trilogy of amazing albums from 2014 to 2018. And then last year they released an album that I really did not like at all. So luckily my expectations were really low for this album. I think it's probably worse than I was expecting. It's just radio rock, which is such a shame to hear from one of the best metalcore bands ever. Just a garbage, thoughtless album, I guess. Every song sounds exactly the same. If you take away the vocals, I'm like half convinced it's just the same backing track on every single album. The instruments are exactly the same on the exact same on every song. Just terrible. I hated that album. Also didn't finish that one. And then the last dishonorable mention is Heroine by Thornhill. I really liked their debut album, Dark Pool. They had a really unique metalcore sound, and then this one they went for like a Deftones inspired sound, I guess. Just sounds really muddy and crunchy. You can't make out any of the vocals or anything at all. So with all that out of the way, it's time for my number one album of the year. Like I said, nothing I really felt super passionate about this year, but this is probably my favorite album I listened to this year, is Jackpot Juicer by Dance Gavin Dance. Big Dance Gavin Dance fan. Went on a real kick after this album came out this summer. I listened to a lot of their previous albums I hadn't listened to before. This album isn't perfect. It's 18 songs long, and it comes in at an hour 3 minutes, which is too long for sure. I think when I was listening to it a lot, I think I envisioned in my head like the perfect album, which is just taking out like, there's like a 34 second intro song, which you could do without. I think it was like 3 other songs I would take off it, which would get it down to like a 14 song album, which is still a bit long, but it would be a lot more solid. Because there's a couple of songs on here that really aren't very good, but the songs that are on here that I do like, I think are very good. It's one of their better albums, I think. And now that we've done that list, it's time for me to go over my Spotify Wrapped. I always like doing this at the end of these videos, and it's always interesting to see how it lines up with the list I've just gone over. This one's going to be a little bit off this year, but we'll see. We'll see as we go through it. It's already a little bit interesting because we've got the Overcooked soundtrack playing right now, which is I guess it's also in the shared playlist I have with my girlfriend. Good song. Also, we've got Frozen on here. So I went through 33 different genres. That's mostly right. Not quite sure. Hollywood is probably just Frozen songs from our shared playlist, but metalcore and deathcore being the top is definitely about right. My morning started with tense inspirational suspense. Sure. Seize the day with sad boy angst upbeat. Yeah, that would be like Dayseeker and stuff probably. You embrace the night with hardcore mayhem angst. Just metalcore in general, I guess. So I listened to 25,743 minutes, which is more than 75% of other listeners in Canada. It's pretty neat. One song, it was love at first listen. This is the one I was talking about a little bit earlier. It was Shallow by Set Your Sails. 25 times. Okay, so these are going to be my top 5 songs of the year, I guess. There you go, there's Colony Collapse, like I talked about. And then 2 songs from the previous 2 years. Okay, listen to 752 artists, but this is like my top artist, I guess. It's a bit skewed. It's Persona, because I listen to it a lot at work. So, yeah, I mean, I have no idea what that song is. But, yeah, that's pretty funny that they topped my artists. So yeah, a little bit skewed. But I think these are my top 5 artists. So top is Persona, but then number 2 is Dance Gavin Dance, like I was expecting. Devil Wears Prada, Ice Nine Kills, Bad Omens. That all makes sense to me, honestly. I was definitely expecting Dance Gavin Dance to be top because I listened to them a lot this year. Loads in the summer. That's quite a lot of podcast listening time. That's also about what I expected, honestly. 934 minutes listening to Cover Me. Not bad. And my listening personality is apparently the adventurer, which does make sense. Searching for fresher artists, I do that a lot. Like, yeah, I listen to, like I said, my big metalcore playlist. Always trying to find new music to listen to. There you go. That's my top artists and top songs again. Neat. Alright, there you go. That was my top 5 albums of 2022. Thank you guys very much for listening to me talk about stuff that isn't video games. I really like doing this at the end of the year, even though it doesn't really gel with what the channel is. I always like doing it. Feel free to let me know your own albums of the year in the comments below. That'd be great. And stay tuned for tomorrow when I'll talk about my favorite wrestling matches of the year. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!